Hello and welcome to this lightning talk on creating spatial REST APIs using GeoJango. In this lightning talk, we will see how to create CRUD APIs to deal with the geometrical data. We will be taking a look at Django, GeoJango, Djangorest framework and Djangorestframework-gis. All of these steps are important in order to create these CRUD APIs. My name is Krishna and you can reach out to me over email or my website. Now let's take a look at Django. Django is by far one of the most popular Python framework which works on the model view template mechanism. Once the new application of Django is created, we can take a look at settings.py file where we will be mentioning this app in installed apps list, and we can also make changes to the database. By default, Django uses SQLite, but for this example, I will switch it to using my local PostGIS. Once these settings are changed, we can run our application and see the basic Django template up and running. Next is GeoJango. GeoJango is a geographical extension to Django maintained by the Django team itself. It uses a bunch of different applications under the hood. To use GeoJango in our project, we will need to mention it in the installed apps list. And if you are on MacBook of M1 architecture or ARC architecture, you will also need to install GDAL and GEOS libraries separately using Homebrew, and then of course mention it in your settings.py file. Once this is done, we can head over to our models file and start creating the models for our application. Here we can mention the point field. Once that is done, we can create a data loader which will help us to load our shape files into our Django models. Here you can see that I have name, admin, 0 name and geometry as 3 columns in my model, and also these 3 columns I am listing in my shapefile. Once this is done, we will migrate it in order for us to make changes into the database, and then we will simply run this load.run command. This will allow us to actually load this data. Then we can create a view and add this for loop in our Django template. This will allow us to load all these markers on our application, and this is how it will look like. Next is Django REST framework. Django REST framework allows us to take the data from database and serialize it in order to use it as a JSON format. As you can see that once the pip install Django REST framework is done, I will simply mention it in my installed apps, and here you can see that I have created a single serializer.py file which will allow me to get my data in a JSON format. Here you can see that now we have URL, name, admin 0 and geometry. Right now geometry is in a WKT format, but we will take care of it very soon. And by simply using Django REST framework, we will get all these different types of REST API endpoints like get, put, patch, delete, etc. with our application. We can also post new data by adding name, admin 0 and geometry in a WKT format. Obviously we can also delete it. And finally, let's have a look at Django REST Framework-gis. This is again another Python package that we will use in this application, and obviously we will have to mention it in our installed apps. Once that is done, you can see that it will allow us to get the serialized data in a GeoJSON format, which is exactly what most of the front-end clients require. For example, if you are working with OpenLayers or Mapbox or MapLibre, all of those will require GeoJSON in order to load the vector data. Once that is done, you can see that you can also create these geo features by creating geometry on the fly and getting the data back. And here you can see that once we do the get request, we will get the data in a GeoJSON format. We can also send the data by passing the geometry as a feature. There are a bunch of default filters available by Django REST framework of GIS, where we can do B-box filtering, which means getting all the data inside a bounding box. We can also do TMS style filtering, which means getting the data using TMS style format. And that's all. So there are a bunch of different things that we can do directly right out of the bat, and there are obviously more and more filters that we can add to create needed APIs. If you have any question, feel free to reach out to me, and you can follow this GitHub link to see the code actually in action. Thank you.